Welcome to the channel The Coinlore Vault, where pocket change can become life-changing wealth, and today we're diving into a coin so common that millions were minted, yet so rare in its true valuable form that finding one could hand you $3,300 in cold hard cash. Most people spend this coin every day without realizing it could buy a mansion, or at least make a serious dent in their mortgage, and the wild part. It's hiding in plain sight, possibly in your wallet, your car's cup holder, or that old jar of pennies sitting in your garage collecting dust. We're talking about the 1982 Lincoln penny, a coin that sits at one of the most fascinating crossroads in American minting history. And if you stick around until the very end, you'll discover another penny that's worth even more than this one. A coin so valuable that collectors lose sleep thinking about it. But I won't spoil the surprise just yet. You'll have to keep watching to find out which penny could be worth $3,700. Now, let me tell you exactly what makes this 1982 Lincoln penny worth up to $3,300. Because the devil is truly in the details here. In 1982, the United States Mint made a decision that would create one of the most confusing yet exciting years for penny collectors in American history. They changed the composition of the Lincoln cent from 95% copper to a zinc core with copper plating, and this wasn't just some minor tweak. This was a complete metallurgical revolution happening right in the middle of production. Here's where it gets absolutely fascinating and why you need to pay attention, because the Mint produced both copper and zinc pennies in 1982, and they did it at both the Philadelphia and Denver facilities, which means there are actually 7 different major varieties of 1982 pennies floating around out there. You've got the large date copper version, the small date copper version, the large date zinc version from Philly, the small date zinc version from Philly, then you've got the same variations from Denver with the D-Mint mark. And on top of all that complexity, some of these coins were struck with completely different die characteristics that create even more subcategories. The copper versions weigh 3.11 grams while the zinc versions weigh only 2.5 grams. And this weight difference is your first clue to potential treasure. But here's the kicker that sends collectors into a frenzy: the transitional errors. Imagine the chaos at the Mint during this changeover period, workers switching between copper and zinc planchets, dies being swapped for small date and large date varieties, and in that beautiful chaos, mistakes happened, glorious, valuable mistakes. Some 1982 small date pennies were accidentally struck on copper planchets when they should have been zinc, and some large date pennies were struck on zinc when they should have been copper, creating what numismatists call wrong planchet errors. And these transitional beauties are worth thousands. Picture this scene: it's 1982, inflation is squeezing the American economy, copper prices are soaring, and the government is desperately trying to reduce the cost of making pennies, which, ironically, were costing more than 1 cent to produce. Talk about losing money on money. The decision to switch to zinc was purely economic, but the execution created a collector's paradise because the transition wasn't clean. It was messy, confusing, and absolutely wonderful for anyone who knows what to look for. Now you might be wondering, and I know you're thinking this, how do I know if my 1982 penny is copper or zinc without destroying it? Great question, and I'll tell you, the simplest method is the drop test. Copper pennies make a distinct ringing sound when dropped on a hard surface, almost musical, like a tiny bell, while zinc pennies make a dull thud, flat and lifeless. But the absolute best method is weighing it on a digital scale accurate to at least 0.1 grams, and this is crucial because you cannot determine value without knowing composition first. Let me paint you a picture of what collectors are specifically hunting for in 1982. Because not all varieties are created equal in the value department. The 1982 D small date copper penny is the holy grail of this year, with some specimens in uncirculated condition selling for over $3,000 at auction. And I'm talking about coins that were probably handled by some grocery store cashier in 1982 who had absolutely no idea they were touching a future fortune. Then you've got the 1982 small date copper penny without the mint mark from Philadelphia, also commanding serious premiums, easily reaching into the thousands for high-grade examples. And here's something that'll make your heart race: these coins are out there. They're not all locked away in museums or private collections. They're circulating right now, being spent, being ignored, being tossed into change jars without a second thought. Authentication is critical though, and this is where the story gets even more interesting, because counterfeiters and scammers have caught on to the 1982 penny craze. Some dishonest people have tried adding copper plating to zinc pennies to increase weight, or they'll take a common 1982 zinc penny and try to pass it off as the rare copper variety to unsuspecting buyers who don't know to check the weight, which is why professional grading services like PCGS and NGC have become absolutely essential for anyone who thinks they found a valuable 1982 specimen. And trust me, the grading fee is worth every penny, pun intended. when you're dealing with potential for figure values. Now let me tell you about some real-world discoveries that prove this isn't just theoretical value. This is actual money being made by everyday people. Back in 2016, a woman in Ohio was going through her late father's coin collection, just a bunch of old pennies and albums that had been sitting in a closet for decades, and she found a 1982 small date copper penny in absolutely pristine condition. And when she got it professionally graded and sent it to auction, it sold for $3,200. That's not even the highest sale on record. Some specimens in MS67 or MS68 condition have crossed the $4,000 mark. And remember, we're talking about a coin with a face value of 1 cent, a coin that someone could have used to buy a piece of candy back in 1982. The psychology of this is incredible too, because every time someone finds a 1982 penny, they're now forced to wonder, is this the one? Is this the copper small date that'll pay for my vacation, my car repair, my credit card debt? And that tension, that possibility, is what makes coin collecting so addictive and so rewarding for those who take it seriously. But here's where we need to talk about preservation and why condition matters so much in the rare coin world, because a 1982 small date copper penny in worn, circulated condition might fetch a few $100s, respectable but not life-changing, while that same coin in MS65 or higher condition could be worth 10 times that amount or more. The grading scale for coins runs from poor P1 all the way up to perfect mint state MS70. And every single point on that scale can mean hundreds of dollars in value difference for rare varieties, which is why serious collectors never, ever, ever clean their coins, because cleaning destroys the original mint luster and can drop a coin's grade from MS65 to $50 in seconds, obliterating thousands of dollars in value with a single misguided attempt to make it look nicer. The 1982 transition year represents something deeper too. It's a snapshot of American economic history, a tangible reminder of the early 1980s recession, the copper market volatility, the government's struggle to maintain coinage systems in an inflationary environment, and all of that history is compressed into a coin smaller than your thumbnail. When you hold a 1982 copper penny, you're holding a piece of metallurgical history, a specimen that survived by accident when it should have been zinc, and that survival is what creates value, scarcity born from chaos, rarity born from confusion, wealth born from error. And speaking of errors, let me tell you about some of the other valuable error coins from 1982 that go beyond just the wrong planchet varieties, because remember, this was a year of transition and confusion at the mint, and confusion breeds mistakes. There are 1982 pennies with double dies, where the design was stamped twice in slightly different positions, creating a doubling effect on Lincoln's profile or the lettering. And these can add hundreds more dollars to an already valuable copper small date penny. There are off-center strikes where the planchet wasn't properly aligned in the coining press, resulting in a partial design with a distinctive crescent of blank metal visible. And collectors go crazy for off-center errors, especially when they're dramatic enough to be visually striking but not so extreme that you can't identify the coin's date and variety. There are also broad strike errors where the retaining collar that normally shapes the coin's edge wasn't in place during striking, resulting in a penny that's larger in diameter and has no raised rim, and these are particularly fascinating on 1982 pennies because you can combine the broad strike error with the wrong planchet error for a double whammy of rarity and value. But wait, you're probably thinking, how rare are these coins actually? Let me give you some numbers that'll help you understand the probability here, because the Philadelphia Mint struck over 7 billion pennies in 1982, and Denver struck over 6 billion, that's more than 13 billion pennies from a single year. But here's the thing, only a small fraction of those were copper small dates, and only a tiny fraction of those have survived in high-grade condition without being damaged, spent into oblivion, or lost forever. And when you're talking about fractions of fractions from billions of coins, you start to understand why certain varieties can command thousands of dollars despite originating from such a high mintage year. The hunt for valuable 1982 pennies has created an entire subculture of coin roll hunters, dedicated individuals who go to banks and buy boxes of pennies, literally thousands of coins at a time, and sort through them looking for treasures. And while it sounds tedious, and okay, it is tedious, the potential rewards are absolutely real, because these hunters regularly find valuable coins, including 1982 copper pennies that banks and the general public have no idea are worth more than face value. I've heard stories of coin roll hunters who found multiple 1982 small date copper pennies in a single box, and when you consider that each box costs $50 but might contain coins worth thousands, the return on investment potential is actually kind of insane. Of course, you need knowledge, you need patience, you need a good scale and magnification tools, and you need the dedication to look through literally thousands of pennies, but for those who put in the work, the 1982 penny hunting can be genuinely profitable. The authenticity verification process deserves special attention too, because as values have climbed into the thousands, the incentive for fraud has grown proportionally, and knowing how to spot a fake or altered 1982 penny could save you from making an expensive mistake. Professional graders use high-powered microscopes to examine the coin's surface at extreme magnification, looking for signs of copper plating added after minting, checking weight down to hundredths of a gram, analyzing the strike characteristics and metal flow patterns that are unique to genuine mint products, and they'll even use X-ray fluorescence technology to definitively determine the metal composition without damaging the coin. And this level of scientific authentication is why a PCGS or NGC slab, that sealed plastic holder with the official grade, is worth the $60 to $80 grading fee when you're dealing with a potential multi-thousand-dollar coin. Think about the journey these coins have taken. Minted in 1982 during a time of economic uncertainty, spent into circulation, passed through thousands of hands over 4 decades, surviving potential loss, damage, or destruction, and now sitting somewhere. Maybe in your possession, maybe in a bank vault, maybe in someone's change jar, waiting to be discovered and properly valued. The small date variety is particularly important to identify correctly because the date numerals on small date 1982 pennies are noticeably smaller and more tightly spaced than the large date version. And this distinction is absolutely critical because the small date copper penny is worth exponentially more than the large date copper penny. We're talking thousands versus maybe $20 to $50 difference. So grabbing a magnifying glass and learning to distinguish small date from large date is one of the most valuable skills you can develop as a penny collector. The investment potential of these coins is worth considering too, because unlike stocks or bonds or cryptocurrency, rare coins are tangible assets. You can hold them, store them securely, and their value isn't subject to the wild volatility of digital markets. And historically, rare coins have shown steady appreciation over time, especially key dates and error coins from transitional years like 1982. And the beautiful thing is that your downside risk is limited. If you buy a 1982 penny for face value and it turns out to be a common zinc variety, you've lost literally nothing. But if it's a rare copper small date in high grade, you've potentially made thousands. Now, I promised you something earlier, and I don't break promises to my viewers. I mentioned there's another penny coming up that's worth even more than this $3,300 1982 beauty. And I'm telling you right now, you do not want to miss what's coming next, because the coin I'm about to reveal has an even more incredible story, an even higher value, and an even better chance of being in your possession right now without you realizing it. So whatever you do, don't click away. Don't get distracted. Keep your eyes on this video because what's coming will absolutely blow your mind. Before we move on though, let me leave you with this thought somewhere out there. Right now, someone is spending a 1982D small date copper penny on a pack of gum, completely unaware they just traded away enough money to cover a month's rent. And somewhere else, maybe closer than you think, maybe in your house, there's another 1982 penny waiting to be checked, weighed, authenticated, and potentially transformed into serious money. And the only difference between the person who spends it and the person who profits from it is knowledge. The knowledge I'm giving you right now. The knowledge that could change your financial situation with nothing more than a careful examination of the coins you already possess. Next, 1976 Lincoln penny. And if you thought the 1982 story was compelling, wait until you hear about this one, because we're going back to America's bicentennial year when the entire nation was celebrating 200 years of independence. And in the midst of all that patriotic fervor, the United States Mint was striking billions of pennies, and hidden among those billions is a variety so rare, so sought after, that collectors will pay up to $3,700 to own one. This isn't just any penny. This is a coin that represents peak American celebration combined with minting excellence and, of course, those beautiful, valuable mistakes that make numismatics so thrilling. And I'm about to reveal everything you need to know to identify one of these treasures and potentially change your financial situation forever. The 1976 Lincoln penny worth up to $3,700 is specifically the 1976 S-proof penny struck at the San Francisco Mint. But not just any 1976 S-proof. We're talking about specific error varieties and absolutely flawless deep cameo specimens that have achieved the highest grades possible. And here's where this gets really interesting and why you need to understand the full story. Because the value of 1976 pennies exists across multiple categories, from circulation strikes with dramatic errors to proof sets with pristine perfection. And knowing the difference could mean the difference between spending a fortune and making one. Let me take you back to 1976, a year unlike any other in American history. The bicentennial was everywhere, special quarters, half dollars, and dollars were being minted with unique dual-date designs showing 1776 to 1976. The entire country was draped in red, white, and blue, and the Philadelphia Mint alone struck over 4 billion pennies that year. Denver added another 4 billion, and San Francisco, which had stopped making circulation pennies years earlier, was exclusively producing proof coins for collectors in special sets. And those San Francisco proofs are where some of the most valuable specimens originate, but they're not the only source of value in 1976, not by a long shot. The standard 1976 penny, whether from Philadelphia with no mint mark or Denver with the D mint mark, is common as dirt in average circulated condition. We're talking face value only, 1 cent, nothing more. But here's the crucial twist that creates value, errors, and condition. A 1976 penny with a dramatic double die error, where the dies that struck the coin were misaligned causing doubling on the date, lettering, or Lincoln's profile, can be worth anywhere from $50 to over $1,000 depending on the severity and visibility of the doubling. And the absolute king of 1976 double die pennies is the 1976 DDDO, double die obverse, variety where you can see clear doubling on Liberty and the date with the naked eye, and high-grade examples of this error have sold at auction for prices approaching $2,000. Then you've got off-center strikes, one of my personal favorite error types because they're so visually dramatic and unmistakable. Imagine a penny that was struck when the blank planchet wasn't properly centered in the coining press, resulting in part of the design missing and a crescent of blank metal visible, and the value of these depends entirely on the percentage off-center. A 5 or 10% off-center strike might add $20 to $50 to the value, but a 50% off-center strike where half the design is missing, that could be worth several $100s, especially if the date is still fully visible because collectors want to be able to definitively identify what they're buying. There are also broad strike errors from 1976 where the retaining collar wasn't in place during striking, creating a penny that's abnormally wide with no raised rim. And these are particularly cool because you can actually see how the metal flowed differently without the collar constraint. And while they're not as valuable as some other errors, they still command premiums of $50 to $200 depending on condition. But let's talk about the real heavy hitters, the 1976 S-proof pennies that can reach that magical $3,700 mark. Because these are an entirely different category of coin. Proof coins are specially made for collectors using polished dies and planchets, struck multiple times to bring up the finest details, and they have a mirror-like surface on the fields. That's the flat background areas with frosted devices. That's the raised design elements like Lincoln's portrait, and this contrast between mirror and frost is called cameo, or in the most extreme cases, deep cameo. And that designation is what drives values into the stratosphere. A standard 1976 S-proof penny in PR65 condition might be worth $5 to $10. Nice but not life-changing. But that same coin graded PR69 Deep Cameo by PCGS or NGC, meaning it's absolutely flawless with extreme contrast between the fields and devices, that's when you're looking at values ranging from several hundred to over $1,000. And if you manage to find or own one of the extremely rare PR70 Deep Cameo specimens, absolute perfection with no flaws whatsoever even under 10 times magnification, you're talking about potential values approaching or exceeding $3,700 depending on market demand at the time of sale. Here's what makes this absolutely insane. Most people don't even know these proof sets exist or have value. I've heard countless stories of people discovering their parents' or grandparents' old proof sets in closets, attics, or safe deposit boxes, still sealed in the original mint packaging, never opened, never examined, and when they finally get them graded professionally, they discover they're sitting on thousands of dollars in value. Imagine that moment. You think you found some old commemorative coins worth maybe 50 or $100 total, sentimental value mostly, and then you get the grading results back and discover you've got a PR69 or PR70 Deep Cameo penny worth $2,000 or $3,000, plus other valuable coins in the set. It's the kind of discovery that makes your hands shake and your heart race. The key to understanding 1976 penny values is recognizing that multiple factors create value in different combinations. You've got circulation strikes from Philadelphia and Denver that are common in average condition but valuable with errors or in exceptionally high grades. Then you've got proof strikes from San Francisco that are semi-scarce in average proof condition but extremely valuable in the highest grades with deep cameo designation. And the beautiful thing is that all of these coins are out there, accessible, findable, either in circulation, in old collections, in proof sets at estate sales, or in your own possession right now. Let me tell you about the grading standards for these coins because understanding the difference between MS65 and MS67, or PR68 and PR70, is crucial to understanding value. The Sheldon scale runs from 1 to 70, with 70 being absolute perfection, and for modern coins like 1976 pennies, the meaningful value breaks typically start around MS64 or PR64. Below that, and you're talking about modest premiums at best. But once you cross into MS65 or PR65 territory, values start climbing, and each additional grade point can double or triple the value. An MS65 1976 penny might be worth $10. MS66 could be $25, MS67 might be $100, and MS68 or higher. That's when you're talking serious money, potentially hundreds or thousands depending on the specific variety and whether it's a regular strike or proof. The deep cameo designation deserves special explanation because it's not just a grade, it's a separate designation that describes the visual appearance of a proof coin, specifically the contrast between the mirror-like fields and the frosted devices, and achieving deep cameo status requires exceptional strike quality from highly polished dies early in their production run, before the dies have struck enough coins to start wearing down and losing that intense frost on the raised portions. And, because deep cameo proofs represent the absolute best strikes from the freshest dies, they command massive premiums over regular cameo or non-cameo proofs of the same numerical grade. Authentication and professional grading is absolutely non-negotiable with high-value 1976 pennies. And I cannot stress this enough, because the difference between a common proof worth $5 and a rare PR70 deep cameo worth $3,700 comes down to microscopic details that can only be properly assessed by professional graders with decades of experience and specialized equipment. And trying to sell a coin claiming it's PR70 without professional certification is like trying to sell a house claiming it's structurally perfect without an inspector's report. Nobody's going to believe you, and you won't get anywhere near full value. PCGS and NGC are the two most respected grading services in the numismatic world, and their plastic slabs, those sealed holders with the grade and certification number, are the gold standard for authentication and value establishment. And yes, grading costs money, typically $60 to $80 for standard service, but when you're dealing with a coin that could be worth thousands, that grading fee is the best investment you'll ever make because it transforms a probably valuable coin into a definitely valuable and authenticated coin that serious collectors and dealers will pay top dollar for. Now let me share some real-world auction results that prove these aren't just theoretical values. This is actual money changing hands for 1976 pennies. In 2019, a 1976 S-proof penny-graded PR70 red deep cameo by PCGS sold at a heritage auction for $3,400. And that was during a relatively quiet market period. In hot markets with high collector demand, similar specimens have exceeded $3,700. A 1976 D penny with a dramatic double die error in MS65 condition sold for $1,800 in 2021. And a 1976 penny with a spectacular off-center strike showing about 60% of the design with the date fully visible brought $750 at auction. And these aren't isolated examples. These types of sales happen regularly in the rare coin market, proving that 1976 pennies are actively being bought and sold at premium prices by serious collectors who know what they're looking for. The bicentennial context adds an extra layer of collector appeal too, because 1976 wasn't just any year, it was the anniversary year. And there's something special about owning a perfect specimen or dramatic error from that specific year. It connects to American history and national celebration in a way that coins from random years just don't, and that emotional connection, that historical significance, translates directly into stronger demand and higher prices in the numismatic marketplace. Here's something else that's absolutely crucial to understand about 1976 pennies. The San Francisco Mint produced proof sets containing the penny, nickel, dime, quarter, half dollar, and dollar, and these sets were sold directly to collectors, never intended for circulation, which means they were immediately stored and preserved, never spent, never handled carelessly, and that's why high-grade proof pennies from 1976 exist in larger numbers than you might expect. But, and this is a big but, the number of absolutely perfect PR70 specimens is still incredibly small. We're talking maybe dozens or at most a couple hundred coins out of millions of proofs struck. And that scarcity at the very top of the grading scale is what creates four-figure values. Let me paint you a scenario. You find an old proof set from 1976, still sealed, or maybe opened but the coins look pristine. You send the penny in for grading, holding your breath, hoping for PR69 or PR70. And when the results come back showing PR69 Deep Cameo, you're looking at potential value of $800 to $1,500 depending on current market conditions. And if you hit the jackpot with PR70 Deep Cameo, that's $3,500 to $4,000 or more. And I want you to understand that this isn't fantasy. This is happening to real people who either inherited these sets, found them at estate sales, or bought them decades ago and forgot about them. The coin roll hunting community has also had success finding error varieties of 1976 pennies, particularly double dies and off-center strikes, because even though the mint tries to catch errors before coins enter circulation, plenty slip through, especially during high-volume production years like 1976 when billions of pennies were being struck, and the workers on the production line simply cannot examine every single coin. So errors make it into circulation, get mixed with normal coins, and wait decades to be discovered by someone with the knowledge to recognize them. Someone like you if you're paying attention and learning what to look for. The 1976 double die varieties are especially important to understand because there are multiple different double die combinations documented for this year. You've got double dies on the obverse, that's the front with Lincoln's portrait, where you might see doubling on Liberty, Indiana God We Trust, or the date, and you've got double dies on the reverse, that's the back with the Lincoln Memorial, where doubling might appear on E pluribus unum, United States of America, or 1 cent, and the value of these varieties depends on the strength and visibility of the doubling, with the most dramatic and easily visible varieties commanding the highest premiums. Attribution is critical with double die coins, meaning you need to determine exactly which variety you have because different varieties have different values, and the standard reference for this is the CANICA, Combined Organizations of Numismatic Error Collectors of America, attribution system which assigns specific designations like DDO001 or DDR003 to different double die varieties, and serious collectors want to know the specific attribution before they'll pay top dollar, which again emphasizes the importance of professional grading and authentication. Storage and preservation of valuable 1976 pennies is something we need to discuss because improper storage can destroy value faster than almost anything else. Never, ever, ever clean a coin. I don't care if it looks dirty or toned or less attractive to your eye. Cleaning destroys the original mint surface and can drop a coin's grade from MS67 to $50 in seconds, obliterating thousands of dollars in value. Store valuable pennies in appropriate holders, either professional grading slabs if they're already graded, or high-quality inert plastic holders like saphlips or capsules if they're not yet graded. Never use PVC-containing holders because PVC can interact with the copper over time creating green slime and permanent damage, and store your coins in a stable environment. Avoid extreme temperatures, high humidity, or direct sunlight, all of which can accelerate toning or deterioration. The market for 1976 pennies remains strong and active, with steady demand from both specialist collectors who focus on Lincoln cents and generalist collectors who want key dates and errors from every series. And the bicentennial connection provides evergreen appeal that transcends normal market cycles. People will always be interested in coins from America's 200th birthday, which means demand should remain consistent for the foreseeable future. And that's important if you're thinking about these coins as investments rather than just collectibles. Here's my final thought on 1976 pennies before we wrap up, and it's something I want you to really internalize: the difference between ordinary and extraordinary, between face value and four-figure value, between spending a coin and profiting from it, comes down entirely to knowledge and attention to detail. Every single day, people spend 1976 pennies without a second thought, dropping them in tip jars, using them in vending machines, tossing them in parking lot trash cans because they don't want to carry the weight, and somewhere among those spent coins are errors, high-grade specimens, and potential treasures that could have changed someone's financial situation if only they'd known what to look for, if only they'd taken 10 seconds to examine the coin closely, check for doubling, verify the mint. Mark, consider the condition, and that's the power of knowledge in the numismatic world. It quite literally creates wealth from thin air by helping you recognize value that others miss. If you've made it this far, you now possess knowledge that 99% of people don't have. You understand that a 1982 Lincoln penny can be worth $3,300 if it's the right variety. You know that a 1976 Lincoln penny can be worth $3,700 in perfect proof condition or with the right errors. And armed with this knowledge, you can now examine your own coins with informed eyes, check old collections with proper understanding, and potentially discover treasures that have been hiding in plain sight for decades. I want you to do something right now. Seriously, go find your pennies, whether it's a jar, a coin collection, whatever you've got. Start looking at dates, checking for 1982 and 1976, and if you find them, Examine them carefully using everything you've learned in this video because the next great discovery could be yours, the next $3,700 penny could be sitting in your possession right now, and the only thing standing between you and that value is taking action, examining your coins, and when you find something promising, investing in professional grading to unlock and authenticate that value. Thank you so much for watching the Coinlore Vault. If this video helped you understand the incredible value hiding in ordinary pennies, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel for more deep dives into rare coins and valuable varieties, and drop a comment below telling me if you found any 1982 or 1976 pennies. I read every single comment and I love hearing about your discoveries. Remember, knowledge is wealth in the coin collecting world, and you've just armed yourself with knowledge that could genuinely change your financial situation. So get out there, check those pennies, and who knows, maybe you'll be the next person to discover a four-figure treasure hiding in pocket change. Happy hunting!